Okie dokie. Well, it is 7:30 on the dot, and we will get started. We'll call the meeting to order. I am going to mute you all for now. If there is a need for you to talk, please unmute yourselves. Welcome again. Welcome to our members and our friends and our guests and our presenters. It's going to be a very interesting meeting tonight. I'm Mike Uhas. I am the president of the Wisconsin chapter of the NRHS. I thank you all for joining. I am coming to you live from my basement, and it's a little chilly down here. That's why I have the jacket on. So today's meeting is going to be sort of a round robin discussion. We've got three of Wisconsin's leading railroad museum entities participating with us tonight. We've got Steve Thomas and Evan Richards going to present on behalf of the East Troy Railroad Museum. There are other East Troy Railroad Museum people in the audience, like Jeff Wojciechowski, who's got that background picture there. Jenny and Steve McCarthy are in the house as well, and I know we have one or two other people here from East Troy, and or at least we did. So welcome to you all. Also here is Bob Lettenberger from the National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Welcome, Bob. And then finally, Jeffrey Lentz and Bill Burmaster and Pete Dietz from Mid-Continent Railway Museum are going to be with us as well. So we'll get that started in just a moment here. Just have a couple of small pieces of information here to share with you all. And first of all, we do have a couple of new members in the house. And so earlier, before everybody checked in, I welcomed Ward Wells as a member of the Wisconsin chapter. Ward, why don't you unmute yourself and say hi?
Hey, hi everybody. I'm glad to be part of the group. Thank you.
Thanks. You were with us last month as a guest. You are in Riverside, California, which makes you one of our far-flung members. Awesome. But you do have a Wisconsin connection, so we hope you can get to one of our membership meetings when we have them again, the next time you're out in Wisconsin. And welcome to our meeting again tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and also our newest new member is Steve Thomas, is with us. Why don't you unmute yourself and say hi, Steve?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I used to go to NRHS meetings when I was in college with a college professor and a couple of students that he'd drag along to the meetings. And I was just feeling too busy all my working life, but I retired not too long ago, like Mike. Well, Mike did much more recently than I did, but I'm glad to be a member now and look forward to future meetings.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And you're one of our presenters tonight, so that's very good. So we acknowledge our new members, and we also acknowledge some of our longer term members. We got word this week that two of our members qualified for NRHS membership awards. Specifically, Charles Parrott has received a membership certificate commemorating his 25 years of membership. He's not with us tonight, I don't believe, but 25 years of membership in the NRHS. And over and above that, Mr. Jay Lentzner has qualified for 50 years of membership in the NRHS. These are huge milestones, and I would like you all there. I think you have a reactions button down here at the bottom of your screen. If you can do this little thing to give them a little solidarity there, that we're clapping along. A round of applause for these guys. Their longevity is so important. We appreciate their membership in the NRHS. All right, so the way this meeting is going to work, we're going to go in sections. We'll start off with the East Troy folks. We'll turn everything over to them. At the conclusion of their section, we will do a question and answer period. and then we'll move on to the next one after that, and a question and answer after that, and then finally the third one and a question and answer after that. However, at any time, anybody should feel empowered to use this this chat function that you see down, I guess, at the bottom of your screen or wherever. Have a running commentary to either the hosts or the participants or everyone or whomever. So welcome all. So with that, let's get us rolling here on a Friday evening, a beautiful Friday evening. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being indoors when you could easily be walking around your neighborhood and enjoying Wisconsin springtime weather. With that, I will turn over the festivities to Steve Thomas and to Evan Richards from the East Troy Railroad Museum. Why don't we give them a round of applause and welcome you guys. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to speak to this group. It was a much shorter drive tonight than it was the last time we got together to chat. East Troy Railroad Museum. We are at the last 6 or 7 miles of the line from Milwaukee that came out to St. Martin's, split at St. Martin's, the other branch going to Burlington, and we've got the last 6 or 7 miles here between Mukwonago and East Troy. In more detail, this is Mukwonago up here and East Troy down here, and this is our usual run on our main line. Once in a very, very great while, a privileged few get to ride our Trent Spur, but that's only rarely done. And you can see what amounts to our timetable here, East Troy to Mukwonago. And the reason, I think most of you know, the reason this line survived is when TM stopped interurban service in 1939. There was a lot of objection from the industrial customers of the freight service in East Troy. So the line was sold to the village of East Troy, and they operated it in the freight service, fortunately keeping the line alive until the beginnings of the museum started in the early 70s. And looking back, this is what the East Troy depot looked like. That house on the right over here was the depot. That house still exists. And there was a shed where the bus connections were made with the Wisconsin motor coach lines. This is a more recent picture. The house is still there. The canopy is not. And that's one of our Minneapolis streetcars sitting there. A few things about the East Troy Railroad Museum. We think it's a very special place. For one, it is an original interurban line. It's been in operation since it was built. Our track is a little longer than is typical for railroad museums. Of course, there are some that are way longer, like Cumbres and Toltec, but we've got a very fine 6+ miles of main line that goes from one town to another. So that's kind of a nice setup. And we have a nice collection of cars. And we have regular service during the summer. We offer charters. We have special events and dinner trains. We're often asked how many pieces of equipment we have. Last time I counted, it was 27 and 14 in service. And of course, the asterisk, at any given time, some may be very temporarily out of service, maybe a little longer out of service if the parts take a while to get or the money takes a while to round up, but it's somewhere in that just over a dozen active cars. Our ridership in previous years have been just under 25,000 riders, which I imagine is probably more than they had on the original interurban line. And this is our 2019 regular schedule here at the bottom of the page. And I assure you that 2020 is not a regular year. That was what we had planned for last year, and something very similar for this year. But that's all changed, of course. We did start a attempt at regular operations just this last weekend. In addition to the regular operations, we offer charters for special events, a lot of school charters and anniversaries and birthdays. Plus we have dinner trains, normally running with our two South Shore remodeled interurbans, the lengthened cars with the big windows and air conditioning. And we have various kinds of dinner trains, the formal dinners, sit down, very well, high-end cuisine. But we also offer family events and sort of things in the middle for older and younger crowd together. Plus a beer tasting train, and the diners have restrooms and bar services offered. Well, here's our Minneapolis streetcar and some kids boarding. Those are lots of fun because there's so much energy. Here's another school group that is a regular charter customer. This teacher, and you see right here, is my nominee for Teacher of the Year because she satisfies her Wisconsin history requirement by teaching a unit about Car 26, our Sheboygan interurban car. And her students, and this is a group of them here, are all very well informed, and it is amazing the questions they ask. So that is a lot of fun. A lot of times they'll come and have a picnic lunch either at our depot or at the park. We have, in addition to school groups, you may recognize some folks from this group. This is from a couple of years ago. We had a two-car South Shore train at the, it took some pains to plan the run-bys and the sun angles, and we had just the perfect, gorgeous day. And we even did a nod to the photo that was at the last end of the last run on the North Shore line to Milwaukee, posing at the end of our evening with that charter. Then the following year, we arranged to get down the Trent Spur, which I don't think had been used for, well, I don't know how many years, quite a few. So that was a little brush cutting and track clearances and making sure things work and spiking some switches that weren't really operable and so on. But we had some nice settings. This picture was taken during the track test the day before, and it kind of reminded me of a certain dust jacket that you may be familiar with. And this is a photo that was taken on the day of the actual charter, and I could tell you some things that happened down there, but in the interest of time, I think I'll skip those details, but lots of surprises, no extra charge. Here's a photo of our dinner train, our two South Shore cars with air conditioning. This is what it looks when everything is set for dinner. And you can see the passengers out the window just ready to board. A little closer look at the salads are plated on board and the bread is sliced on board. And so things are fresh, and try to keep a rather high standard. We did a especially fancy dinner when we challenged our chef last run of last year to come up with the best, fanciest, most incredible meal they could imagine, and they did. This was the hors d'oeuvre, the appetizer, a crab cocktail in a martini glass, and we even had some appetizers in the depot, served by this fellow here. We do hear from time to time, well, what do dinner trains have to do with interurbans? Well, here's the one that the Milwaukee Electric had. A duplex unit between Kenosha and Watertown. Didn't last particularly long, but it did exist. Here's the South Shore version of a diner that ran between South Bend and Chicago, and the North Shore, of course, had dining cars, even up to the end with the Electroliner Tavern Lounge. They had their famous Electro Burger, and a nod to that is our annual burger train. Other little historical things that we try to keep alive are the parade train. This is a nod to the Schuster's annual event in Milwaukee on the streetcar tracks. We bring Santa Claus from the Elegant Farmer down to East Troy, where he's usually met by a fire truck to take him down to the town square where they light the Christmas tree. On our special event days, that's a great day for rail fans to show up. We get out everything that moves, and instead of having one car hold down all the runs of a particular train for the day, every run has different equipment. And there's even some that's parked on the siding, as you can see L8 over here on the side, the Lauber's siding. So that's a good time to see everything. We have a night photo shoot every year, for the past several years anyway. Here we lined up all our South Shore cars for a photo. And here's one from another year. We get a lot of good out of this because the photos we use in our promotional material and in our calendars and things like that. So it's a wonderful event. Here's another. Lauber's is part of our campus, sort of, in that they are preserving history in their way. If you haven't visited Lauber's, you should. Here's a photo of what it looked like back in, I guess about 1911. It's one of the 1100s, just short of Division Street, where the depot is over here on the left, the same house that you saw earlier. And in the background here, you can see the substation. Now the substation still exists. And you notice there's a big blank space here. Lauber's did not exist then. This is the now part of the then and now. You can see the substation here blocked by this building. This is the depot, and here's Lauber's. This is what serves as our depot now. Was the substation that had 4 rotary converters in it that were automated. It was quite an advanced system. It was the subject of some papers in the electrical journals. The system would shut off if once the car came into East Troy and parked for the night, it shut off. And that saved the TM the labor costs of having somebody turn it on and off, since the load automatically turned itself on. This is our depot up at the Elegant Farmer, and you can see off to the right here is our Phantom Woods barn, and to the right of that is our relatively new maintenance facility, where activity goes on there year round. And it's nice because now we have a pit. This building is heated, and we can do things much more comfortably than crawling around in the dirt and the mud in freezing weather in the barn. So this is one of the diners getting some work, and you see the checklist of what's being done and what needs to be done. This is kind of a rolling facility. It's a rolling hardware store and line car, and an authentic piece of TM equipment, D23. And it does all sorts of things, including some snow plowing in the winter. And when the weather is a little bit warmer than what's in this picture. This is a favorite car. It's a recreation of the open cars of the turn of the last century. And it's called Bucky, has nothing to do with the University of Wisconsin mascot. It's a single truck car, and you get the feel for the right of way, and it's a great car, except when the weather is not good. This is a picture from last weekend, actually. This is the first meet of our 2020 season. Loads were light, which was great because it gave us a chance to kind of work out the procedures for dealing with the separation and masks and sanitizing and all that. Here's our Minneapolis streetcar parked at Burns Park, which is a popular destination for school charters. Our Milwaukee streetcar, 846. This is a gem of the collection, one of my favorites, Sheboygan car 26. Beautiful wooden interurban. Not too many wooden interurbans operating. And certainly I don't think there's any other wooden interurban that ran in Wisconsin that's still running in Wisconsin on authentic interurban rails. Here's a shot last fall, 2 cars passing. I took this last weekend. This is one of our Chicago L cars with a brand new paint job. The other one is scheduled to get 4453 paint job soon, but these 2 cars were built by the Cincinnati Car Company. Number 26 on the right in 1908, 4420 for Chicago in about 1925. So what, 16 years, 1924? 16 years between the 2. It's striking the difference in the technology, and just shows what a rapidly advancing field electric railroading was in those days. Some other cars. This is a lengthened South Shore car, it seats 80. This is one that wasn't lengthened. This is a rather busy day on the railroad, a big meet last year when we were moving equipment. Some great news we have, our North Shore car, 761, is finally getting some restoration work. We've got a guy that knows how to weld, and we've, with the help of Steve and others, we've rounded up some funding to work on that car. We also are restoring South Shore number 6 because we do use our South Shore cars a lot in the fall, and we do need a spare so that we can service the other ones, or if there's something breaks unexpectedly. So here the 2 of them are in our maintenance facility being restored. There's a group of folks that have been working on it. This gives you an idea of some of the things we do. These guys are working on truing up the wheels and getting the flange depth and everything back in spec on T23. Here's our welder teaching some of our folks how to weld so we can carry on. All kinds of things to do. Here's Steve McCarthy with a bunch of people working on the track and keeping the switches and rails in good order. An important guy in our operation is our new operations manager, Jim Firearm. He's been tending our radios for a long time. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He helps clean things up and pitches in where necessary. He loves to get out on the line and operate. I think his favorite thing is here he is in our diners, entertaining our customer, taking pictures and so on. He also is great with the kids. This is one of our outreach efforts at one of the East Troy elementary schools. And we all do our bit to keep the railroad history alive. I try to do my part with my grandchildren, and there's one of my youngest grandson and youngest granddaughter. She knows how to read and throw a switch. So, and I think that's about all I have. And I think Steve wants to talk a little bit about our organization.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Great job. And Mike had asked if we could put up an org chart or, let people know kind of who our key folks are. And this is our current org chart. We've got a couple spots that are open and may remain open, but it's there are areas that we think in the future we'd like to have people in some of those spots. But we have a board of directors. It's a good group. They've been, most of them, around for quite some time on the board of directors. Chairman of the board currently is Pat Dorn. President is Ryan Jonas. Operations manager Jim Fireherm, who you saw in the presentation. And under Jim, there are a whole lot of folks managing the dinner trains, doing the overhead work, making sure our power supply is in good shape, managing the gift shop, maintenance away. Steve McCarthy, who's one of your members, is great in his role. And assistant operations manager and restoration committee that is working on a couple of cars right now. And so any questions on the presentation, first of all, or second of all, on the organization?
It's hard to believe that no one has questions. I'll say this.
Is everyone muted?
Well, yes, everyone is muted, so unmute yourself if you do have a question. But let me again, Steve and Evan and everybody else from East Troy, let me again acknowledge how you guys are wonderful hosts. And when we came, when our chapter came for a couple of excursions that you guys set up with our Vice President, Keith Schmidt, over the last couple of years, you really rolled out the red carpet for us. You made us feel very, very, very welcome. You did take us down to the Trent siding. A few of us did get stung by bees, but you know, as you say, Evan, that was little extra, no extra charge. So, but again, thank you again for your hospitality. You guys are a wonderful example of railroad preservation. And there's got to be some folks that have some questions.
This is Jeff from California. I was just wondering if you could put up that map that was on one of your first slides so we could get a longer look at it.
This map?
Or the previous one?
Which one? This one?
Evan, I'm not sure which one he wanted to see. I thought it might be the previous one, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
I have a question about the corona effect upon the rides. Are there fewer people per train or more trains?
All right. Go ahead, Evan.
I was going to say both, but go ahead, Steve.
Well, yeah, right now we're having fewer people than we would normally expect to have. We've been ready to run more trains if we do get more people. We've had an extra crew on hand in case we get a big crowd. But the other thing we've done is we've gone to electronic ticketing, so we have a pretty good idea who's coming before they get there, and we then know which cars to bring out depending on what kind of a crowd we have. And frankly, we haven't had much of a crowd the first 2 weekends. Well, today was the first day of the second weekend that we've been operating. But part of the thing is we haven't really gotten the word around as much as we could have or maybe should have that we are open again. And part of it is probably some people aren't ready to be out and about yet.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It gives us a chance to really brush down the procedures and not have to deal with a big crowd. So it is easier to keep the separation and keep everybody doing what they need to do and have a good time. So it's been very unstressful so far, and I think everybody's doing what they need to do.
I think our folks did a nice job preparing to be able to handle safe operations during this virus.
Would you go over what kind of precautions you're taking?
Well, for one thing, we're asking everybody to wear a mask, all our staff and all our passengers. Now, some of our passengers aren't thrilled about that, but that's just I think that's the recommended standards from the CDC and everybody, so we do it. We make sure we sanitize everything before and after the trip. We've modified some of our fixtures in the restroom so that they're touchless. We've gone to a different ticketing system, so we're not handling tickets back and forth. So we're eliminating the contacts. We're seating people at least 6 feet apart in open cars. In other words, cars that can have open windows. So we keep the weather has been great, so we keep the air circulation pretty robust. So
and the other thing is, if we would have a crowd, we've got markings on the sidewalk in the boarding area and marking in the depot, like you would see at your average store, showing the distance of 6 feet apart, so that people know where to stand if they were waiting at the ticket counter, or if they were waiting to get out the door to board the train. There's lines on the pavement, or there are X's in the depot to show you where to stand to have that social distancing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions before we move on to the next presenter? Evan,
I'd just like to,
I'm sorry, just 1 second. Evan, if you could unshare your screen, that would be great. And go ahead with your question, Kyle.
I'd just like to echo your comments, Mike, that we were there. They hosted the CNWHS for our meet last year, and they were excellent hosts. That was my first time there. And the person behind the counter was real responsive to my questions about the wigwag that they have there and things like that. Some of you may know I'm a big fan of wigwags and restoration and things like that. So great staff there. We had an excellent time. They really made it a fun day for us.
Thanks for that comment.
good to hear. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kyle.